Hi, everyone. I'm Claudia Vargas. I'm an investigative reporter here at NBC 10, and we are going to be talking about an upcoming documentary that's airing tonight. It is called Somebody Knows Something, The Disappearance of Dulce. And joining me is Trent Steele with the AntiParter Project. It's a nonprofit investigative agency that is now taking a look at the Dulce case. So I'll just talk a little bit about who Dulce is and our upcoming documentary, and then Trent, you and I will get into a little conversation here. So for folks who are just catching up with this case, Dulce was 5 years old in 2019 when she went missing from Bridgeton City Park. She was at the playground just like any other kid, playing with her little brother. Mom is in the car. She was working on a lottery scratch off. She looks up. Next thing you know, she can't see her kids, goes to check on them, and Dulce is nowhere to be found. She eventually calls police. There's a huge police search from there. You had local, state, federal authorities looking for this little girl. And to this day, she's still missing. Just yesterday, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released an updated age composite of what they believe she would look like now at 9 years old. So Dulce is 9 years old as of today, and that is what they believe she looks like. So, Trent, you guys just recently got involved with this case. Tell me a little bit about, I guess, what your agency does, and then also your interest in this particular case.
All right, there we go. So we're a nonprofit, 501c3 private investigation firm, and we specialize in missing children and human trafficking cases. That's kind of what our wheelhouse is. A few months back, a family representative from Dulce's camp reached out to us and asked us if we would be interested in having a look at this case, and we looked at it, and our team decided that it's something we wanted to get involved in, and that's why we're here. So we're in town for the memorial this weekend, and hopefully we can make some progress on the case.
Yeah. And tell us how you guys work, because do the police turn over their files to you? Are you starting from scratch? Tell us a little bit about how your group goes about investigating such a case.
So every case is different, right? Sometimes we work directly with law enforcement. Sometimes they don't want to share information, and we run a parallel investigation. In this particular case, Bridgeton PD, the prosecutor's office, they're playing their cards very close to the vest, and I can understand that. We do the same thing. So it's important. I know the general public is sometimes frustrated with the lack of information that comes from authorities and the lack of information that comes from law enforcement. It's always important to remember that in almost every case that I've been involved in, and we're talking about hundreds now, law enforcement always knows more, right, than what they release to the public. So they always keep a good bit of that back, to ensure the integrity of the investigation. So in this particular case, they've made it very clear that they're not going to be sharing information with us. Which I understand, not the first time that's happened. So we're going to go ahead and run our own parallel investigation, and we're going to look at this thing with fresh eyes. We're going to bring in a lot of experience from all over the country, retired law enforcement, current law enforcement, a bunch of different technology now that we can bring to the table that maybe didn't exist 4 years ago. And we're going to see what we can do differently and what different points of view we can bring to the case.
That must make it tough then if police aren't sharing anything, because so much of this case was based on the initial interviews that they had with the few witnesses that were at the park. So how do you go about doing that? The starting from, going back, and do you try to find the witnesses who were there at the basketball court, or talk a little bit more specific to this case, how you'll go about doing it?
So in cases like this, when we aren't getting, file sharing from law enforcement, a lot of times we have to go back and reinvent the wheel, so to speak. So we'll have to go back and do our own interviews, do our own field work, and kind of start from scratch. And it slows things down a little bit, but it's not the worst thing in the world, because that means we can, we don't have to rely on somebody else's take, somebody else's eyes. So in this particular instance, we're going to have to go back and recreate some field work. And then we're also asking anybody in the community to please, I know there has been a little bit of discord between the community and law enforcement because of the demographics of Bridgeton. And, one thing that we're trying to get out to the community is that We don't care about anybody's legal status. We don't care about anybody's immigration status. We work for Dulce, and we work for this missing now 8-year-old little girl, and we don't care about anything else but that. People can come forward. If you've got information, you can remain anonymous. You can interview with our investigators separate from law enforcement. Law enforcement won't be present, and you can remain 100% anonymous. And that's really the message we're trying to get out to the community, and try to build a bridge of trust so we can hopefully get somebody to come forward. Just as the title of your documentary says, somebody knows something. And in all the cases that I've been involved in around the country over the last decade plus, there's never been anybody that has just vanished and nobody's known nothing. So somebody in the Bridgeton community knows something, and we need that person to come forward and do the right thing.
Yeah. So if you do get a tip that's valid and you think is, going to take you somewhere, do you have a duty to report that to police?
Absolutely. Absolutely. At the end of the day, this is still a legal investigation. This is still, I'm going to guess, a criminal investigation with law enforcement. And if something bad has happened here and we uncover the fact that something bad has happened, number one, we want that person to be held responsible for what's happened. So of course, we're going to turn over the information we have to law enforcement. Now we're not under any duty to reveal our source to law enforcement. So that's when I tell people that you can remain anonymous. You can come to us and remain anonymous. We can pass the information to law enforcement, and you don't have to be named.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then also in terms of security footage or cameras, if the police don't seem to be working jointly with you, how do you expect to get access to that? Because early on, there was talk about a red van. And while there weren't security cameras right at the playground, there were in the vicinity. So pulling that video, for example, can you even do that?
We can ask nicely for the video, and sometimes people give it to us, sometimes they don't. In this particular case, I'll be honest, the red van, the information on it is so wishy-washy. I'm not sure how immediately important it is. We're more interested right now in talking to the people that were at the park that day, that can kind of help us understand what the environment was at the park, who was there, because there's no way that all these people were at this park and nobody saw, nothing, right? So somebody saw something. So right now, that's what we're most interested in. We're most interested in speaking with people that were at the park that day. We're most interested in speaking with people that may know somebody that fits the description of the photo that was released. That's what we're most interested in right now.
And why should people trust you guys? What's your success rate, and how likely is it that you are able to solve this?
Well, I don't pretend to sit here and think that we have the magic wand, right? There's no silver bullet for any of this. And anybody that's going to get up here and promise results, right? They're crazy. They're making a false promise. The only thing that I tell everybody is between all of the people on our staff, we've got hundreds of years of casework experience between all of us. We've got access to a lot of new technology. And the only thing that I ever promise is that we're going to move heaven and earth to try to find families answers. Does it always work? No. Does it work sometimes? Yes, absolutely.
You mentioned staff. How many people do you have on staff, and are these paid positions, or is everybody volunteer?
So right now, everybody is volunteered. We do raise money. We are a 501c3. So, for instance, we raise money to cover the trip up here, right, and the hotel stay. But nobody takes a paycheck. Everybody works other jobs. Some folks are retired. And they volunteer their time because they believe in the mission. So when I tell everybody that I work with the best men and women on the planet, it's really the truth. These people give up their own time, lots of times their own money, to help families in need. And I can't say enough about that.
So how many people do you have on the ground right now in Bridgeton, and what kind of resources are you working with for this particular case?
So right now it's just me here physically. I've got a team of analysts that are working behind the scenes on some new technology that we think might be able to help with this. We will be bringing a full team here at some point from around the country. This was a little bit of a short notice trip for us, so it was hard to get everybody together. We will be traveling a full team here at some point. Right now it's just me, and then I've got a team of analysts in different places around the country that are working on some other stuff as well.
What does a full team look like?
Right now, I've got 4 analysts dedicated to this case from around the country. They're in different places. And then I'll probably bring a team of anywhere between 4 to 7 investigators with me back next time I come. This really is kind of a trust building trip. We're trying to bridge that trust gap from the community. So a lot of this trip is about shaking hands with folks in the community, getting them to trust us. When we come back next time, we hope there's a lot of people who want to sit down and talk with us. You know, we've got guys that are retired law enforcement from just up the road in Newark, New Jersey, New York, and YPD. If need be, they can be down here in a couple of hours. If people want to talk, I can be back on a plane tomorrow if need be. So, but this trip mostly is about bridging that trust gap in the community.
Do you sense that there could be confusion though amongst people, you know, whether they go to you or to law enforcement, because now there's going to be these parallel investigations?
So there could be, and what I tell everybody is this: always, if you've got an option and you've got good information, please always go to law enforcement first. They're the ones that can hold people accountable. There's the ones that can, you know, do something with the information. We're here if you don't feel comfortable going to law enforcement. If you don't feel comfortable talking to a person with a badge and a gun for whatever reason, we're here to take care of that information. So, but if there's ever any doubt, people should always go to law enforcement first, but we're here to help in the event they don't feel comfortable doing that.
Do you have Spanish speakers on your team? Because as you alluded to earlier, in Bridgeton, there's a lot of Hispanic people. There are Spanish speakers, and that is what we've heard from the community, that part of the apprehensiveness to go forward, to come to police, is the language barrier, perhaps, or just culturally. So how do you address that with your team?
So you hit the nail on the head. There's a big cultural issue here in Bridgeton that I think the misunderstandings in culture and the cultural issues have caused some issues in this case. We do have Spanish speakers, and they will be coming back with me. And we have people from the same regions of Mexico, Guatemala, El Salvador, some of the folks and here in Bridgeton and in Vineland. So we're going to be bringing those folks back with us. Not only do they speak the language, but they understand the culture. And I think that's going to help a lot.
Yeah. And one of the things that I should mention for people who are watching, we do have a QR code that can take you to the prosecutor's office for anybody who does have tips. And like you were saying, if it is something that should go to law enforcement, there is the ability to do that. So we have it up on the screen right now. So that's a QR code that will take you to the prosecutor's office. The phone number listed there is for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They also have a case on Dulce, and people can report any tips anonymously to them as well. So just wanted to put that out there for folks. And Absolutely. For anybody who's just joining us now, again, we're talking about Dulce Maria Alavez, a 5-year-old girl who went missing in 2019 from Bridgeton City Park. A new age progression sketch was released yesterday, and this is what they believe that she would look like now at 9 years old. And this is all also heading into tomorrow, which is tonight first. Our documentary is airing at 7 p.m., but it's to coincide with the anniversary tomorrow. So tomorrow will be 4 years since Dulce Maria Alavez went missing. And we have a documentary that details the investigation. We spent a lot of time with the family, both mom and grandma, who had custody of Dulce, just about what happened that day and what's happened in the last 4 years. Because there's, Trent, I don't know if you've gotten caught up to date, but there's been a lot in the last 4 years, from the psychic tips to the family has also been interviewed multiple times. And Noema, Dulce's mom's pretty open with us that they're still considered suspects under law enforcement eyes. Their home just last year was the subject of a search warrant. So there's a lot to cover. And we've tried to cover most of that in our documentary coming up at 7 p.m. And Trent with the AntiParter Project, who is now looking at this case as well. Is that something that you are also planning to look into, the family itself, and are they part of the scope of your investigation?
So we're just getting started on all of this, right? And we're going to look at every avenue that makes sense, every avenue that could possibly lead us to some answers. So I'll say nothing is off the table. About the only thing that I will say is off the table is the psychics and the tarot card readers. In the hundreds of investigations I've worked around the country, I have yet to ever have anybody from those worlds contribute anything useful. So that's about the only stuff that we probably won't consider. But everything else is on the table. But we're going to be fair, and we're going to, be impartial about how we look at this. And that's part of the reason why we come in, is because after you work cases for a long time, you get tunnel vision as an investigator. So we're coming in with fresh eyes, fresh perspectives from different points of view of law enforcement agencies all over the country, and we're going to be fair and look at this thing with impartiality and run down every angle that makes sense. At the end of the day, we work for Dulce, and that's who matters here.
Yeah. And in the other cases that you've handled, have you had anything similar to this case where a little girl or boy has been missing for this amount of time and been found? And if so, what was the result of that?
Absolutely. Most recently, the one in the news, Alicia Navarro. We were working on that case with Glendale PD for over 4 years. And, it was an ending nobody expected. She walks into a police department in Havre, Montana, and turns herself in. That was an ending, I think, if you talk to anybody involved in that case, whether it's us, the FBI, Glendale PD, nobody, I don't think, saw that coming. And so the good news is she's alive, right? And when I speak with parents of other missing children, and I was just speaking with Noemi earlier today, I referenced that story because I don't want anybody to give up hope. That little girl had been missing for 4 years, and then she turns up. So with these cases, they're very, very dynamic. There's not one missing child case that's the same. All of them have different circumstances. All of them have different environments. So you can't take a cookie cutter approach to any of them. But the one thing that needs to stay consistent is the family does not need to give up hope until there's a reason to do so. And so that's the way we're approaching this case. We don't have a reason to give up hope that Dulce is no longer alive. We don't have a reason to give up hope that something bad happened. And until we have that reason, we're not going to do that.
So the AntiParter Project was involved in that disappearance that you just spoke about?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. But so she turned herself in, but was that the result of your organization?
That was the result of her turning 18 and wanting to be off the missing persons list. It's a very unique situation. That one we've never encountered before. That is a first that we've had somebody actually turn themselves in. But we've recovered earlier this year. We brought a girl back from Mexico that had been missing for over a decade from Florida, and that was a result of our organization's work. We went to Mexico City and got her and brought her back. So, like I said, every case is different. You never know how these things are going to play out.
Yeah. So you guys do travel internationally then? Do you travel to Mexico for that? Because in this case, Dulce's family is from Mexico originally. So presumably you might have to go down there at some point.
Correct. And if we have to, we will. The only rule that we have is that it has to involve an American citizen. And it's not because we don't care about the plight of other countries or children in other countries. It's because we hold actual licenses and insurance policies here in the United States. And our insurers insist that if we're going to take those risks, travel out of the country, we need to have an American principal involved.
Okay, great. Well, Trent, thank you so much. Anything else that you wanted to mention?
No, except, once again, if you know something, please come forward. Talk to us, talk to law enforcement. People don't just vanish in the thin air, right? Somebody knows something. Please come forward.
Yeah, and that's the title of our series, Somebody Knows Something, The Disappearance of Dulce. And you can catch that tonight at 7 p.m. And we'll have that up here on NBC 10, as well as our streaming channels listed on your screen. So again, Somebody Knows Something, The Disappearance of Dulce premieres tonight at 7 p.m. on NBC 10 and those streaming channels. And Trent, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.